Parliament in the National Assembly. We are in front of the NCOP as the construction workers are still working on the National Assembly, which of course burned down 2 years ago. And there is fervent work that is going on to fix that part of Parliament. This particular MTBPS is as important as all the other ones we've seen since the dawn of democracy. But this one comes at a time when the economic metrics are looking better. Load shedding has not been with us for some time. Inflation is getting within the target range. And when it comes to that particular issue also of fuel prices, so we've been having some fuel decreases every month. So things are looking much better overall. But is it the case really as we await Enoch Godongwana's speech, because there are many issues that are at play, including the high wage bill, including the debt issues for the government, and of course how it spends its money. And one of the organizations that has been at the forefront of lobbying for government to properly and appropriately apportion the spending to government departments and provinces is the Alternative Information and Development Center. And I'm joined now by the economist there, that is Dominic Brown. Dominic, thank you so much for your time. It is absolutely appreciated. I wanted to start here in terms of this particular budget. Things are not as bad this time around in this MTBPS as they were last year at the same time. Does that mean that we should expect something better? Does it mean that the AIDC is expecting a better outcome from Enoch Godongwana come 2 p.m. tomorrow?
Thank you, Xolani. Firstly, I think on the surface, we do look in a much better situation than we were a year ago, albeit, or rather I should say, however, we should take, if we scratch a little bit beneath the surface, I think we're sitting with a situation of more than or close to 12 million people who are unemployed. That's more than 40% of the workforce who is sitting jobless. And I think we have the deepest levels of inequalities in the world, with income inequalities and wealth inequalities increasing over the past 30 years. And it's shocking to note that to this day, there are 10 million people who are going hungry each week, 3 million of which are children. So in that regard, of course, this MTBPS, looking forward to the budget next year, is extremely significant.
Let's talk about the debt situation for the country. We've been talking earlier, you were saying that, yes, debt is a huge issue for middle-income countries like South Africa, but it is not such a major issue for South Africa because our debt is denominated in rands, it is owed in rand, and not in US dollars like many other countries. But it doesn't mean that the debt picture is better, because when you look back 17 years ago, our debt to GDP was sitting at below 30%. Today, it's above 70%. What does that mean to ordinary South Africans who want service delivery? Because that actually takes away from services.
Yes. The problem of unemployment, inequalities, a lack of service delivery and crime will get worse if we cut budgets. And the cutting of budgets and or austerity is purportedly aimed at reducing the level of government debt. This has been the main reason for austerity, growing levels of government debt. And as you correctly say, since 2007, government debt levels have grown significantly, from below 30% to now 73%. However, it must be said that this is very much in line with comparable countries. So we've seen the growth of government debt levels in most middle income and emerging markets. Secondly, when you compare it to other middle income countries, South Africa's debt levels is actually relatively low. Thirdly, there are other mitigating factors. So one, as you correctly say, 90% of South Africa's debt or general government debt is denominated in rands. This reduces exchange rate risks. It also reduces the pressure on the state to need to raise hard currency in order to pay back debts in foreign exchange. More than that, Xolani, it's important to note that South Africa has a very favorable balance sheet where we have large levels of domestic reserves, including high levels of foreign exchange reserves. So this is more than enough to meet our debt service costs. So in fact, while it may be a concern that our debt levels have grown, it's critical to note that they are not alarming at all. But I think more fundamentally, it's to say that there are much more efficient and equitable public debt management strategies. When you slash budgets, you shrink the economy, and what that can translate to is an increasing debt to GDP ratio over time. Alternatively, if government invests in economic development, in ensuring sufficient social protection, what that can do is stimulate the economy and over time actually reduce the debt levels as the size of the whole economy. So what that means is that not only is austerity undesirable, given that it deepens unemployment and austerity, it's actually not necessary. What we really need to do is to invest in stimulating growth and addressing the social crisis we're experiencing at the moment.
Dominic, thank you very much for your time. Dominic Brown is from the Alternative Information and Development Center, a lobby group working towards fair distribution and an anti-poor budget in South Africa, something that is quite important. And of course, there will be a lot of eyes on Enoch Godongwana, on what he does on issues such as the social relief of distress grant. As we know, that is not permanent yet. We expect him to give some indications on what will happen come February at the main budget as to what the decision will be in terms of whether it's going to be made permanent or a combination of other grants to actually soften the blow on the poor and the unemployed.